So, Super Mario Maker 2. It's a thing, and it's amazing! Once again, as is tradition, Nintendo proved me wrong. As some of you might know, I've always said that there would never be a Mario Maker 2 on Switch because of the console's limitations. And don't get me wrong, I loved the original Mario Maker on Wii U, so when we got the announcement in February, I practically lost my mind. So with all this excitement for the next entry, with all the new features and hopes we have for the game, the very reasons that made me convinced Mario Maker 2 would never see the light of day might still be present today. So with that said, what can we expect from this masterful Mario making machine? We have lots of features and speculations to get across, so let's get talking about it! Hello everybody, my name is Skullkid, and on this month's discussion video, we're talking about Super Mario Maker 2. Of course, I'm really excited to get playing some more Super Mario Maker on my Nintendo Switch of all things. It honestly can't get here fast enough, but of course a title as expansive as Super Mario Maker has a lot of features to talk about, lots of speculations, and of course lots of hopes from us fellow creators who have played with the original, and of course have discovered its limitations. So we're going to be talking about that so we can determine how Mario Maker 2 can be one step closer to being the perfect Mario game. But before we get to that, however, if you're new to the channel and you're into gaming discussion videos like this one, I've been doing monthly discussion videos for a while now, so if you're interested in that, or a bunch of other gaming videos like unboxings, indie game showcases, or even my hilarious original Mario Maker Let's Play, and much more, consider joining this small lovely gaming community by subscribing to Skullkid Gaming for more on all things gaming. So as I said earlier, before the announcement, I never expected to actually see Mario Maker on the Switch. I just felt that the console had too many limitations for the game, and the reason I bring it up is that in all the excitement, it seems everyone, and myself included, has sort of forgotten about these potential problems. You see, the original reasons why I thought Mario Maker would never come to the Switch is mostly based on its hardware. Of course, the Wii U had 2 screens, and that was quite an important factor for Mario Maker. The thing with Mario Maker is there's still so much value to be played in TV mode, but without a touchscreen in TV mode, it seems like it would just become a chore to make some levels, especially if it's using some cursor or whatever it may be. Mario Maker requires a good amount of precision, and if you're playing with a cursor, it's just gonna take you a long time. So with all that, I couldn't really see an effective alternative to the original coming to Switch. And of course, knowing Nintendo, they don't want to have basic mechanics feel too gimmicky. When it comes to core mechanics, they want it to make sense. So from what it seems from the trailer, it looks like we'll be using a cursor in TV mode. Of course, we're going to be able to use the touchscreen in handheld mode, but one little detail that I think could be overlooked easily is that the Switch doesn't have a stylus. And, I mean, to most it seems like it wouldn't change anything, but for Mario Maker, I think it will. You see, because Mario Maker still requires lots of precision. If you've ever played it on Wii U, you know that the block grid is still fairly small, and even though you could technically make it bigger, but let's be real, if you're too zoomed in, you really have no context for what you're building. Now, to counter that, Nintendo seems to have added a zoom feature, which can be seen in the trailer, and of course they've taken measures to adapt the game like the circular select wheels for items. Overall, we still don't know if this system will be as fun or as efficient to build great Mario levels. So, I guess we'll just have to see when the game releases, but that's something that still worries me a little. Now, another reason why I thought the game would never come is that for some reason, I convinced myself that there wouldn't be enough to add for a new game. I mean, I said this even if I knew that, for example, everyone wanted slopes, myself included. And I mean, oh boy, was I wrong. It's obvious there was so much to add, and what we saw in those 1 minutes of glory from that trailer shows us that there could even be much more potential out there. Lastly, I thought that Nintendo's server limitations would be an issue, and the fact that we don't have Miiverse anymore would hold it back. Now, what I mean by Nintendo's server limitations is that during the original Super Mario Maker, there was a relatively low player base on the Wii U, and Nintendo put a star system. The more stars a creator got, the more levels they would be able to upload. Now you can tell the reason why this was there was that Nintendo didn't want people to be allowed to upload infinite levels. They have limited server space. Nintendo is far from being the leader in gaming servers. Now you can tell that Nintendo definitely wasn't expecting that many levels to be published. Why do I say that? Well, for example, they added an update that would remove the fact that you would automatically star while commenting. And when they released the game to 3DS, which had a huge installed base compared to Wii U, they just decided to remove the upload feature altogether. But that might be fixed in the Switch version, because now we're paying for the online, so it's harder to justify not being able to pay for that server space and let us upload our levels freely. Now, coming back to Miiverse, of course it added a big part to the game, not only for sharing levels and getting more visibility, but mostly for the comments that people left, either as stories in their levels, or just to give some feedback. And, well, we've seen it with Splatoon 2, where Miiverse was so crucial to the game that they mimicked Miiverse back into the game itself. And so I think it's likely we'll get that for Super Mario Maker 2, but it would really be a bummer if they don't put anything of the sort back. So really it seems most of these issues have been sorted out already, and since we're talking about Nintendo here, and we know the amount of polish and attention to details they give their games, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that the controls are gonna be good at the very least. Now, one thing's for sure, Mario Maker 2 seems to be adding an absurd amount of new features. I don't want to talk about it too much because just about every YouTuber's gone over all the features featured in the trailer, GameXplain even doing a 1.5 hour long analysis of it. I really suggest you go see it if you're curious about more of the features, but instead I want to quickly tell you how I feel about some of the features before we get to my hopes for the game. So one of the most widespread complaints people had about the original Mario Maker was the lack of any slopes, making it really hard to give levels a certain fluidity in climbing or descending things. Personally, this is a thing I found really annoying too, whether it was because I wanted to make my levels look more aesthetically pleasing, or just because I needed them mechanically to give more speed, sliding down slopes, or just generally not to stop the flow of the players trying to climb up something. That was definitely a little annoying about the original Super Mario Maker, and it just feels like something that should have been there from the beginning, so I'm happy to see it here. Another thing I'm excited about, Super Mario 3D World. I didn't see this one coming at all, but I think it's going to be great because Catsuit is really interesting. I really like the art style of Super Mario 3D World, and I think it's going to give it the modern twist that people were looking for but didn't get with the new Super Mario Bros. U style. Another feature I'm excited about, custom scroll paths for the camera. One big issue I had with my levels was to get the camera to work properly, and many people had to use little tricks like placing blocks here and there so that the camera would change the way it operates, or avoiding to put blocks on the top sections. That was really annoying. Not to mention, you couldn't really use the top half of the creation space without the camera showing you half of the bottom, so it just made for really messy designs. You couldn't use the same creation space to have two separate linear paths, and the same thing applied for like hidden rooms. If you wanted your rooms to look like they were isolated, it was extremely hard and you had to waste lots of space around them so that the camera would never show other parts of the level. So I hope, especially looking at little one-screen rooms, maybe, the camera will still be able to handle that pretty well, but otherwise it should still add a lot of control to the camera. Lastly, multiplayer seems to be a thing that's happening. It's not that obvious compared to other features, but there was an icon that was potentially hinting at it, and although I'm less excited personally to make levels with other people, even though I see the potential in that, and it was in the 3DS version, I'm mostly hoping to be able to, bring friends over and have them play the levels all together, you know? One thing I think would be really cool is if there are like checkboxes to upload levels that are only beatable in 2 players, then you could make so much more cool puzzle levels. I'm thinking about like Portal 2 co-op, for example. So much potential there if you can lock levels to 2 players. Now, personally, I didn't think the original game lacked too many features, but the main things that got annoying for me was the lack of verticality, because there are a lot of cool levels in Mario that you couldn't recreate. There were item limitations, and by that I mean, for example, you couldn't place an infinite amount of blocks in your creation space. That got really annoying, especially when you had to deal with that camera. And, of course, that stupid unaesthetic ledge at the beginning and the end of every level. Like, why? Why was that a thing? But other than that, it was pretty good. Now let's talk a bit about my hopes for Mario Maker 2. Here's a fun one to start off with. I want all amiibo costumes, specifically because now that they have the Piranha Plant amiibo, I want to play as Piranha Plant against some other Piranha Plants in Mario. Actually, can we have Mario in pipes? That would be fun. Maybe the roles are just flipped, you know? That's why I want the amiibos. But no, in all seriousness, the amiibos were great. I hope that all the amiibos that came out since would be added to the games. I don't know if it's too much to ask for to get sprites for Mario World or Mario Bros. 3. That would be great. But most importantly, the amiibo costumes, whether you had the amiibos or you were unlocking them in 100 Mario Challenge, definitely gave you an incentive to play those special modes. You know, it felt like you were doing some progression in a game that doesn't usually focus on it, so you could try to unlock all of those. And speaking of good incentives to play, I want more collectibles, like star coins. But first of all, let me backtrack a little for a bit of context. So, as you guys may or may not know, I made a level series called the Pure Fun series, which was essentially just a bunch of traditional levels. That's what I made on Super Mario Maker 1. And as with all good Mario levels, there are usually a bunch of secrets, a bunch of hidden rooms or star coins or 1-ups or things that you can get. And when I made my levels, pretty much the only cool thing that you could give out were 1-ups. And as you all know, Mario Maker is sort of just like a library of levels, and the 1-ups didn't really matter. So it's cool to have a hidden room that you can find, but you can't really give any cool rewards. So in Mario Maker 2, I want to see more reward type items. Star coins are a good one. You could have it on the menu screen of your like history of played courses, and it could say how many star coins you have for each course. Or just a random idea out there, what if every creator could make like a custom stamp, sort of like in Splatoon where you draw like Miiverse style, could make like a little stamp, and then you could collect player stamps. That would be really cool, sort of like in Mario 3D World, where you could unlock stamps in each level. That would be really fun. Anyways, I don't know, I'm sort of just throwing random ideas out there, but I want more collectibles. And to get back to that, I wish we could make campaigns, like in Wargroove, for example. I mean, even in Mario Maker 1, if you were to play your courses in CourseBot, there was a little play button where you could play all 4 courses in a row, sort of like a traditional Mario World, and then your power-ups would carry over and your 1-ups would carry over. That's really cool. I wish that we could do like playlist style things for other players to play. That would add much more to the incentive of collecting 1-ups and things, and your power-ups would go over. That would be really fun, especially for people like me who are doing series and where the levels sort of have a natural progression. Now, another major thing I really want to see in Mario Maker 2 are more creation zones. And what I mean by that, and I'm not really sure if they were called anything in the original, but you know, you had your sort of like ground world, your main world, and then you could use like warp pipes to go to your like sub world, right? So you had 2 like layers, so to speak, to build your levels. Now, 2 creation zones wasn't too bad. Honestly, if we still had 2 creation zones, I'd be totally fine with it. One thing though, if we only have 2, is that I'd like to have no basic block limit. What I mean by that is even if we had 2 creation blocks, if you placed too many basic blocks in that zone, it would just stop. Of course, there were limits on enemies, on bosses, on just about everything. But basic blocks, I feel like you should at least, it should be designed so that you can fill up the whole zone with blocks. It shouldn't have any limits, because I would sometimes create a level, and when I'm just near completing it, I run out of blocks and I'm like, well, what do I do now, you know? Another thing, if we only have 2 creation zones, we should have little tiny creation zones that are specifically designed for hidden rooms. They could even be made to have like different camera controls or things, because hidden rooms were the hardest to fit. If you would make one, not only was the camera not working properly for them usually, but they would take up so much space for your more linear traversal level. Speaking of campaigns though, one important thing I think we need, especially if we don't get that Miiverse style commenting back, are text blocks. Many people of course used that Miiverse feature to explain stories or mechanics for their levels, and I really think we need that. I know you could argue there's a language barrier since Mario Maker is universal, but I feel like it's just still worth having nonetheless. And since many levels in the original Mario Maker were like non-traditional levels anyways, I'd love to see like more win states to complete levels. We already seemingly saw in the trailer that you could collect a certain amount of coins, even though I don't know if you'd still need to go to the flag. That's sort of undetermined, I don't exactly know how it would work, but I want to see more win states. Maybe not coins, maybe keys, I know that's a bit similar. I can't honestly think of more types of win states that I would need, but I just want more win states. The more the merrier. Lastly, I think we need better tools to make boss battles. So we already know there are more bosses. We saw Boom Boom. Is that what he's called, or is that the other one? Anyways, we saw that boss from Mario 3D World. I think we need sort of better tools to make cool boss chambers. This sort of goes back to hidden rooms, I guess. It would be nice if you could have like more variations of the same boss. For example, we had like Dry Bones Bowser, that's pretty much a staple, or just different variations on the same boss. For example, the Koopalings, they all have sort of different weapons. That would be nice to have different variants to make more diverse boss battles. And I think more types of win states are definitely necessary, because pretty much in Mario Maker, you could only do things like jumping over the boss to get the axe, or literally jumping on the boss to get a key. I've seen, of course, many creative things, but I feel like we could get that to be better for boss battles. I know Mario boss battles aren't all that exciting usually, but Mario Maker could become better at boss battles than the actual game. Of course, other games have memorable boss battles, and I hope that Mario Maker would allow us to do that. And lastly, I would like to be able to disable that stupid Bowser that shoots fire from halfway across the level. You know what I mean. It's annoying. It wastes half of your creation space. Please, let us control that. Anyways, those were just some of my hopes for Super Mario Maker 2. It's clear the game has a lot in stock for us come this June, and I really hope none of the concerns I pointed out are gonna end up being an issue. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed this month's discussion video. Let me know down in the comments below what you'd personally love to see in Mario Maker 2, and are you concerned in any way about the limitations of the Switch, or are you just excited to bring it on the go with you? Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Skullkid Gaming for more on Super Mario Maker 2 and all things gaming. Have a great day everybody, and I hope to see you in the next video.